Hey guys, how you doing?
Good morning. Happy
Good morning.
Monday.
Happy Monday. Yeah, good way to start off the week. What do we want to talk about today?
I was thinking that a common problem that we see from time to time is people that have too much cash.
Yeah,
So maybe kind of hard to think about is too much cash. So like, how could that be a problem? And
Sounds like a
really
problem for
is cash itself isn't necessarily the problem, but if you right now, you can actually get compensated decently with these high yield savings accounts that are paying between 3.5 to 4, maybe a little bit over 4%, which is not bad. A couple of years ago, it was like you were lucky to get a 0.5% or a percent
right,
type of return. But with the way the interest rates had risen, it's a little bit better of a situation than it was. But if folks are continually saving and they have you know, a ton of cash in their checking account or a ton of cash in their savings account that isn't paying them interest because they bank with their same bank that they use for their checking, or even in some of these high yield savings accounts, is that you're missing out on a potential greater return if you've had your money invested.
right,
So there's something to be said about the guarantees with the FDIC insurance, and you're getting a stated rate of interest in your bank account. But if you hold that indefinitely, and if you compare that to what market returns have been, you're going to be lagging.
right,
And so, from a cash positioning standpoint, we would recommend between 3 to 6 months worth of cash that you have if you're working, maybe 1 to 2 years of cash if you're retired, and then that's to be able, and 1 or 2 years of cash is like, what are you going to spend in that time frame? If you're planning on spending it and you can't risk any market losses, then that's the money that you want to keep in cash. But if you have money that you have no intention to spend for the next 15 or 20 years, make an investment.
yeah,
Figure out where you can put it into your, tax sheltered accounts if possible. If you're already maxing those out, maybe a taxable investment account might be a good option for you. You might have to be prepared for some, volatility, and if you see some price fluctuation downward in the meantime, it's always disconcerting because you're like, hey, I could have had a guaranteed amount of interest over here in my bank account. Now I'm losing money. But really, is you're owning the assets, and the price of those assets fluctuates over time. And long term, though, they have tended to trend upward. So do yourself a favor. Don't hold too much cash.
yeah. Tucker, any comments?
Well, my question for Skylar was going to be, what do you recommend for savings? But you touched on it with your 3 to 6 months if you're working, 1 to 2 years if you're retired. Yeah, no, I think high yield savings accounts are an extremely valuable thing for sure. It's funny, I was talking to a friend the other day, and he was saying, he's about my age, a little bit younger than me, not much investment experience, not much, experience with high yield savings accounts or anything like that. And
Right.
I was like, dude, he's got a pretty good nest egg saved up. And he's like, I don't know what to do with it. And I was like, well, you got to do something because unfortunately, I feel like you're missing out a little bit. And it's just, I feel like you should put your money to work for you as much as you can. And the high yield savings are a great option. Investments are a great option. Like Skylar said, the tax sheltered options are great. Taxable investments are great. And I would say I think one thing I wanted to add probably too is that high yield savings, Skylar kind of touched on, are somewhere between like 3.5, maybe 4.5, more like four and a quarter, something like that. Which is great, very safe, very short term. Over the long run of investing, 5, 10, 15 years, something like that, if you were to keep it in the high yield savings account, you might miss out on 2, 3, 4 extra percent that your money could have earned. Um, which doesn't sound like a lot at first, but over 10-year period, 15-year period, that can really add up. The
Yeah.
power of compounding
Compounding.
interest. Yep.
Yeah, I would add to that 3 to 6 month number, anything that you have sort of like plan savings, something that you're saving toward.
Hmm.
You need a down payment for a house. That money stays in cash. Your daughter's going to be getting married, and you have a wedding that you're planning for, and you need that money. Or if there's a trip that you're going on, or a home renovation, if there are large, planned expenses that you have, you need to have those without putting those dollars at risk by investment. But take what you have for your regular spending, use that as your emergency fund, and then any planned expenses above and beyond that you want to keep safe, because you can't afford to have a temporary market decline work against you when you need to meet those goals, which are actually tangible. Is like, hey, I didn't get my house
Yeah.
to live in as a result of this, versus
Right.
um, just having money sit there in perpetuity, not gaining as much money as you could.
I think it's an interesting perspective, or maybe I think it's just a shift for some folks who are like starting to get financially savvy or leaning on financial advisors of just what you're comfortable with, like your risk tolerance, which still is definitely a factor, but also paired with just like what are you spending on, right? Your amount in cash really isn't based on your necessarily investment objective or risk tolerance. There's a play there, but it's really what am I spending? What do I need so that this is separated almost of sorts of like I can access this regardless of what's going on in the markets. Okay, now I'm looking at my market piece and how do I feel there? Which might sway and give you some more safer alternatives to pull out if it's some sort of long-term downturn. But yeah, I totally agree with that. Having that kind of emergency fund, depending on even what job field you're in, your I know there's some fields that like contracts run up or can be frequently laid off and find a new position, but sometimes it's a little longer. Having that longer stretch might be more helpful. So yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
all really helpful stuff.
And I think you touched on it a little bit too there, Katie, is there's the general rules, but then it's also a lot of just what you're comfortable with. If you're someone who likes to have 8 to 12 months saved up and that just makes you feel better, then, it's all personal preference. It's
Right.
not, it's if you at the end of the day, you want to feel comfortable with what you're doing.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thank you guys.
All right, see ya.